I'm going to talk about each category one by one now. For traditional industries, how do we upgrade the product quality and values? I'm going to give you some examples. Number one is metal materials. Number two is screws and nuts. Number three, aviation components. Number four is petrochemical products. The first three products are important spare parts to strategic industries. For metal materials, we'll talk about three different types. We manufacture 3C stainless steel fastener. We also manufacture aviation fastener. Now, not too many manufacturers are manufacturing products. The high-value products. Now, the high-value products are in the top of the slide, and in the bottom of the slide are just regular products. Now, there's a lot of manufacturers in Taiwan manufacturing regular products, and yet only a small number of manufacturers in Taiwan are producing top products. I will move on to screws and nuts. Maybe you're not aware, but screws and nuts are major industries in the southern part of Taiwan. There are more than 1,000 screws and nuts producers in Tainan, and they have a very large market share in the global market. So Taiwan is a major producer of screws and nuts. Now, screws and nuts are small and tidy. Again, the regular products are in the bottom of the slide. For instance, regular bolts. And there are more than 100 of producers. Now, if we can produce bolts for aviation, then the value is 45 times of regular ones. Now, there are some 600 producers that produce regular bolts. There are 6 manufacturers that produce aviation bolts. And so the value of products in the top of the slide is very, very high, much higher than the selling price or unit price of regular products in the bottom of the slide. However, producers that produce products in the top are very few. For aviation components, now, producers that manufacture fasteners for the use of automobiles, they could upgrade themselves to become producers of aviation fasteners. And if they can produce aviation fasteners, the selling price of aviation fasteners is 7.5 times of regular ones. And aircraft seat, most aircraft seat are made in Taiwan, and yet Taiwan and so we export this aircraft seat to aircraft manufacturers, and Taiwanese air carrier have to pay a lot of money to buy aircraft. Now this is petrochemical, PP, same raw material, same manufacturing process, and if we use the same manufacturer, and they could produce thermal module for SBR using the same manufacturers. They could upgrade themselves to produce energy-saving race car tires. As for EVA soles, they could upgrade themselves to become ultra barrier. They could become producers of ultra barrier solar film. So this, I'm going to move on to the core industries in Taiwan. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we export a lot of machinery. Now we export a lot of controllers for machine tools. Taiwan is a very famous producer for controller for machine tools. We used to produce knockoff controller machine tools, and now we are becoming more competitive in the mid-range ones. Materials for flat panel display, LCD, semiconductor equipment. Finally is AP. So these are the major products that we produce in Taiwan for controller. I mentioned top of the line, mid-range, and bottom ones. Now, controller for machine tools. We can't produce controllers in Taiwan. We have to purchase from Farnac, Siemens, or Mitsubishi. So we install this controller into the framework that we produce. So can we produce the core part of the controller? Well, of course we can. We have developed a controller locally in Taiwan. However, because the controller market has been dominated by these three manufacturers, it is difficult for Taiwanese manufacturers to tap into this market, and if we want to develop into this market, then we need to give some testing period to our customers. And therefore it's important for us to build up a reputation in controllers. How do we do it? Well, we have to cut cost, and we also have to improve our self-reliance rate. For panel display, our major competitor is South Korea. LCD is composed of some 20 different layers of films. And the blimping one is compensation. This is the compensation film. Now this is the area that we cannot produce. These green ones are films that we can produce in Taiwan. So if we can produce compensation layers and improve the volume of the green layers, then we don't have to rely on anyone else. We can be totally self-reliant. So our goal is to improve our materials self-reliance to some 70% and cut down our cost by 10%. Semiconductor manufacturer equipment. So we want to use local materials and local equipment so that we can cut the manufacturing cost by some 50%. AP is the same. Because of time, I'm going to speed up. And now I want to talk about the capability of building systematic solution. We'll focus on turnkey, and then we'll talk about what is turnkey operation. Now we export a lot of processes, including equipment, technology, and because we have a lot of experience as well. And yet they are cooperating with other nations. For petrochemical, is one of the top 5 in Asia Pacific. And so what they do is they do a turnkey operation. Intelligent automatic manufacturing. There's a lot of robots being used for 3C products. They rely on robots for the manufacturing process. Now, some of these robots are very good. What do robots do? Well, they will handle the assembly of very small parts. There is a robot shaking the parts and the other robot picking a part up, and there's a sensor that put the parts together. So this is the part that I'm talking about. The sensor, the robot arm, everything could be made in Taiwan. However, the yield is only 80%. And if we can improve the yield rate to 99.5%, then we can do without all these factory workers. Now, of course, we use a lot of robots for the manufacturing already, and yet at the final stage, we still have to hire workers. But because of the labor laws in Taiwan, we cannot hire too many foreign workers. Now let me move on to cloud industry. I'm sure you are aware, Taiwan is very, very famous in software and hardware. Now we can put together machines, or we could integrate software and hardware. some manufacturers, they only produce server, but if we could integrate these servers with solution, then they could sell for a much higher price. Let me talk about emerging industries. We have been promoting iCampus in Taiwan. iTransport, iHealthcare, wired cities, iEntertainment, and creative industries. iCampus is very similar. We have a lot of hardware. We also have a lot of software for e-learning. We could integrate them as a total solution, and we could integrate total solution to become iCampus with iSocial, iLearning, iGovernance, iHealth, iGreen, iManagement. I'm sure Professor Guo would tell you that he has to spend a lot of time and energy in the management of the campus. However, these are the functions that could be replaced by the ICT system. iTransport, I'm going to skip this. iHealthcare. So we could rely on the existing hardware and integrate this hardware with software. And if we could combine and integrate this system with big data, then if anyone who is sick, then this person could be sent to any hospital. This person doesn't have to be sent to a particular hospital where he's been receiving treatment, because any hospital can access this cloud, and this person's medical record could be accessed by his new doctors or physicians. And the net profit is 10 times more than regular ones. We already have the capabilities and we already have these products, and what we need to do is to integrate them. Taiwan has upgraded itself from 3G to 4G. If you go to Taipei, you could use handheld devices to access a lot of services. For iEntertainment, there's a Taiwanese manufacturer that produces 4D theaters. Innovative industries. The Ministry of Economic Affairs has been promoting different sectors. As I mentioned earlier, agricultural industries only accounts for a very insignificant part of our GDP, but we can't just let them die, right? And so we have to help them to upgrade themselves. They could integrate their with catering industry, hospitality industries. And if they could upgrade themselves and if they could improve themselves, they could generate some 20 times more of what they used to make. These are the real cases. Now these clam raisers, they transform themselves into an integrated hospitality providers. and many people are interested in indoor agriculture. We do not have to rely on a piece of land. People can grow or produce inside a building. And it's organic and is pesticide-free. And they are generating more than 2 times of what they used to generate in the past.